So, today I want to talk about the differences between the way men process things versus the way that I interpret females tend to process things. And I've noticed this through the course of a number of conversations with women where they ask questions that to me seem almost nonsensical. And it's not because they're maliciously asking nonsensical questions. It's because they just process the world very differently than we do. Men are inherently stoic, reserved, not vulnerable, emotionally compartmentalized, not super emotional, because those are things that, in the grander scheme, other people can take advantage of. And if you're a man, competition is the basis of your nature. And so areas where you expose yourself to weakness to other people are inherent faults and weaknesses that you don't want exploited. So conversations with other men tend to be about things like history, books, philosophy, psychology, sports, observed behavior patterns in people. Sometimes it's venting about work. Usually not, but sometimes. Even cooking. Cigars and whiskey. Wine. Taxes, government, political ideas. Basically anything that you can think of under the sun that is not emotional. Stuff where you can cite a specific source and there's logical evidence to back it up. That is the way that men operate. And when other men are talking to other men, then like the subject of emotional stuff never comes up because men don't want to deal with that. They don't want to be involved with it. They don't want to hear about it. It's not like, it doesn't make my day better to know how you feel. Sorry. And some women struggle with that. And men are also capable of thinking about absolutely nothing, if we're being completely honest with ourselves. We can clear our mind and just like zen the hell out. And a lot of times, when men are being quiet, they're not conversational or anything like that. Barring like an autism thing where they're just nonverbal for a period of time, that's one thing, but men just have the ability to not think about anything, not say anything, and just like be quiet and like lock ourselves away in our own mind. That's something that we're very skilled at doing if we're being completely honest with ourselves. As I understand it, most women struggle with this and don't have the ability to think about nothing. Everything, there always has to be something going on. Their mind is always running. They're always wanting to say something or speak or whatever. A lot of women are uncomfortable with silence, that sort of thing. So, like a number of conversations I've had are like women talking about dudes online and their behavior. Reply guys on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, or like, people that make posts that are flirty with a whole bunch of different people and that kind of stuff. And to that, I have to tell you, there are, well, some people would have you believe there are more types than two, but there are at least two types of men in this world. And there are alphas who are confident in themselves, who cannot be shaken easily, will always be stable. They're really unconcerned about what other people have to think or feel about what it is that they're doing, and those people will not be concerned about the commentary of other people, what they think or feel. It's like it's not a concern. Like, lob darts at me, I don't care. Like, I know who I am, I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm going, and you're not even worth acknowledging. Those are the alpha types. You have the betas that are unconfident. A lot of them end up as simps for women online that they will never meet in person, they will never kiss, they will never have a relationship with, but they send them money or whatever, just fawning for some tiny bit of attention that keeps them going, in the hopes that someday they will run across somebody who will pay attention and actually care. But they don't have any confidence, they don't have an identity, really. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, other than the fact that most women don't want a weak man. They don't want somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. They don't want somebody who's not confident. They don't want somebody that is unsure of their purpose or where they're going in the world, their direction. And I hate to put him on blast, but my youngest brother is the perfect example of that archetype. He knows how to play the game just well enough to find a girlfriend, but only super left-wing types for the most part. Like, women who are looking for an assertive man generally do not find him attractive for the most part. But his politics tend to shift and reflect whatever the politics of the girlfriend he has at the time are. So he has no steadfast morals, no steadfast principles or anything like that, and that's really a symptom of being a beta male, is he is not confident in himself or confident in the identity of who he is, so he adopts the values of whomever it is that he is with in order to make it more agreeable for them, even though he doesn't necessarily believe those things. He's just going along for the ride. And women tend to think about everything in terms of emotion. It's no small secret. Women think emotionally, which is absolutely confusing to men, because men are predominantly logic. And logical thoughts are going to be very different than emotional thoughts. Logical thoughts weigh facts and evidence and draw a conclusion based upon what the likely outcomes are, and divorce emotion from the equation, because men compartmentalize emotion and we stash that away, and then we deal with that at a later time when it's appropriate for us, rather than when we're trying to get things done. Whereas women seem to consider that stuff to be tantamount to address before they actually take any action to do anything. And so in a lot of sense, I feel like there are circumstances where women are left uncertain and they're paralyzed because they don't know how to react or act accordingly, whereas men will reach a circumstance where the emotions may be complicated but the logic is clear. And so they will make a decisive decision and they'll deal with the conflict later on. And unfortunately, every time you make a decision, there are always pros and cons to every decision. No decision is ever perfect, and no decision ever makes everyone happy. And men are okay accepting this. A lot of women struggle with the fact that they can't please everyone. And there are men out there that way too, to be fair. when I was younger, I wanted to please everyone, and I quickly realized that was just never going to happen. It was a farce. So I adapted in that regard. Many people don't. But the big thing takeaway from that is when you think with emotion, the questions that you ask and the conclusions that you draw are very different. Like women asking about men who respond to a bunch of people online, for example. I'm going to return to that. 90% of those men are not taking any of that seriously. The ones that are the confident people who know who they are and have identified what type of identity it is that they have and what is important to them, where they're going, those type of people, none of that is being taken seriously. None of it. At all. If you want an example of accounts that are like that, Dimitri on X is totally, for lack of better phrasing, taking the piss. He is absolutely just on there to have fun, and he takes nothing seriously. And I've interacted with him on a number of occasions, and I like Dimitri. He's a funny guy. But the reality of it is, you can't take anything he says in a reply seriously. And most of the accounts like that are the same. Now, like the beta male simp crowd, I feel like it's similar in the regard that they're not being super serious about it, but I also feel like they also have a lot of fishing poles in the water. You know what I mean? Like they're looking to get a bite because their life, they feel like, is not complete without somebody else in it. Whereas people who are confident with a strong sense of self and a strong sense of purpose and vision, those people are okay whether someone's in their life or not. And frankly, like people like me, I view the right woman as a compliment, the wrong woman as a hindrance. And a lot of people, like the beta male crowd, view any woman as a boon. And I disagree with that philosophy inherently, because there are toxic women out there that are not a benefit to you, and they will destroy your peace and create chaos and generate a life of toxicity that you never thought could possibly exist. And I know this firsthand, unfortunately. So you have those ideologies and those mindsets. The real thing, like men who are confident and strong and that sort of thing, it's their DMs that are really where anything happens. And the people that they're talking to privately are the interpersonal relationships that they're actually attempting to cultivate. And you know, some of those are friendships. They are. I've had conversations with women that I ultimately realized that it was always going to be a friendship, but we have deep personal connection and deep conversations about different things. And you know what? At some point down the road, maybe that changes, maybe it doesn't, but it doesn't have to. And I'm okay with that. But there are other people that are, you know, like trying to bend over backwards to create something out of nothing. And those people struggle. And those are the ones that, you know, if you're a female and you're looking at a guy and he doesn't seem to have any sense of identity, he doesn't have any self-confidence, he's very submissive, he's very, like chronically online is another sign. people who are successful, have purpose, have identity, have confidence, those people are employed and they have better things to do. They're not online all the time. And for some women, that's a drag because they want someone who can sit there and give them attention 24/7. But the reality is that they're attracting losers that have nothing to do but give them attention, and they're going to be a net drag on their life. They just don't realize it yet. And that's the unfortunate reality of those circumstances. But women ask me a number of questions about the way men think. And it always strikes them differently, I suppose. When I explain what the actual thought process is for most men, a lot of them have trouble processing exactly what it is that I'm talking about, or it just doesn't make sense. They don't understand how something that's so important to them, that carries such emotional weight for a woman, could be minutiae or borderline irrelevant for men, because it's not something we think about. It's not something that's even on our radar, and it doesn't matter. And I think part of that is also a great reason that men and women balance each other out, is because men don't consider emotion generally. It's not part of the thought process or the decision-making tree of things that we go through when we're thinking about that. Women do. So I think that the benefit of women to men is that women think about things like that, and it's additional data points for men to process as they consider how they're going to make their decision. For women, the benefit of men, generally, is that men are going to look at things logically. They're going to divorce emotion from the equation, and they're going to say, this is what makes the most sense logically. And then, obviously, women are going to make whatever decision they're going to make, and more often than not, it may be in conflict with what the advice they were given would be, and that's often to their detriment, and many of them never accept that that's the reality of the circumstances, that it's just never going to change. But, hey. The other thing I want to talk about too, while I'm sitting here ranting, is that I feel like a lot of people get lost searching for connection, thinking that their life is incomplete without it. And the reality is that you need to reach a point where your life is complete without connection before you can actually experience a connection. And that, I think, eludes many people because they're not willing to make that step. And I feel like COVID and a lot of the other crap that's happened in the last 5 years has done a great disservice to the youth of this country, because it's led them down paths and roads that they shouldn't have been down, and it's deprived them of certain things that they should have had in terms of socialization and interpersonal communication and direct face-to-face contact and things like that. And so now they're confused, and they're chronically online because they don't know how to deal with anybody outside of being online, whereas the rest of the world functions face-to-face predominantly. And I think there's a lot of hate toward men based strictly on the fact that men think differently than women. And I think that a lot of the hate directed at men right now is unfair, because if you consider the entirety of Western civilization was built by men. That microwave you like to nuke your food in, guess who invented that? White men. The electricity that powers it, guess who invented that? White men. The internet that you use to communicate through your phone or your computer or laptop, whatever, guess who invented that? Men. Indoor plumbing. Again, white men. Refrigerators, most of your home appliances, your automobile, airplanes, like essentially all of the major underpinnings that are hallmarks of Western civilization were created by white men. And the world wants to hate on us after we built a civilization that they love to enjoy the fruits of. High-rise buildings designed and built by white men. This 1619 project crap is a farce. Black men were not building those things. Black men did not design those things. That did not happen. Slaves were not secretly Nikola Tesla in like, it just didn't happen that way. And I'm not saying this to be mean or rude. I'm saying it because this is historical fact. And I don't want anybody to think that this is an attempt to downplay anything, because the reality of it is, if you want to be honest about history, you need to acknowledge what actually happened. And trying to create stupid alternate timelines where, you know, things that didn't happen supposedly did, that's revisionist history, and that's inaccurate, and that's not the way that things actually went. And so the world, I think, needs to understand that all of this hatred toward men is undeserved, because regardless of the flaws of the men of the past, the reality is the civilization that the world enjoys, the technology that the world enjoys, the microprocessor inside your computer, the RAM, the motherboard, the graphics card, the computer monitor, all of those things were invented and refined by men. And you can sit and say, well, the patriarchy this, or blah, 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 whatever. The reality of it is that men in leadership roles occurred because biologically it made the most sense. That's what enabled survival. We wouldn't be here if that was the case. And women in survival, in leadership roles in survival situations, have classically, time and time again throughout the course of history, proved that for the most part they are not capable leaders. There are exceptions, and I would point out that history generally notes the exceptionalism of that because it is so rare. And so that is just a fact of reality. You can't be an emotional decision maker and be a good leader. And there are women who think logically. There are women who have a tendency to draw more logical conclusions. And those women do have greater capacity to lead than others. But they're the exception, not the rule. And this is just the way it is. This is the way that men evolved. This is the way that women evolved. And this is the world that we live in. But, yeah. Anyway, thanks for listening, and hope you enjoyed it.